Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Welcome back, friends. Today we're sitting with a guest who grew up in my town, probably knew who I was when he was a little kid. I had no idea who he was. Apparently I met him at some point even. And then 2020 hit and my shop closed down and I thought the world was over, and he blew up because he used the time wisely.
Yep.
And now you've probably seen him everywhere, outside of all kinds of bars, outside of all kinds of stadiums. Maybe he even asked you a question. Hopefully he'll ask me something, but today I'm asking him questions. Welcome to the show. What, I guess, influencer who walks around and asks people questions? Interviewer? I don't know really what you are. You're a content creator. Welcome, yep. Wyatt Eiden.
Thank you very much for having me. That's what I say. I say content creator. I think the other titles don't really fit me too well, but...
Yeah, but it's hard because when you say content creator, people think OnlyFans.
Yeah, that's the issue I have. So I immediately clarify: short form, TikTok, Instagram, stuff like that.
Sure. So if you had to describe to people, they're going to go right now and, well, say what your Instagram is, and it's all underneath the same, right?
Yeah, it's all under the same
spell
handle.
that out for people and then tell people what they can expect when they go over there and look.
Sure. Yeah. So my handle is just my first and last name, just Wyatt Eiden, WYATTEIDEN. And I make fun videos on the street. So I started by finding a unique way to give college kids an extra $1 by doing trivia challenges, because college kids are supposed to be smart. And so I tested that. How smart are college kids? And then I did another level: how smart are drunk college kids? Because that's what we really want to know. And that started because I never really drank alcohol at all. And my friends would always go out to the bars and I'd be left behind trying to find something to do. So I went out and interviewed them.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't realize that's how it went. So when you first did that, were you like with a mic intentionally right away, you're going to use content, or was it more you were just messing with people?
It was mainly the first one, because before doing that series, I was just posting random videos on social media, and I thought this would be a fun thing to post online as well, because I had a little bit of an audience at the time, and people loved it.
So let's talk about how you initially started to build an audience, because I'm from a different era. And I've read some interviews, like Volume 1 interviewed you, which is dope.
Yep.
They're like our local newspaper. I've been in there a few times too. But in it, you were kind of talking about how you're the first generation that grew up where social media was potentially even a job. Because when I grew up, it wasn't. I don't know. How old are you?
I'm 24 right now.
Okay, so I'm 9 years older than you. But when I was growing up, YouTube came out when I was in high school. I think.
Like 2008 era.
Yeah, exactly. So it was I graduated 2008. So by the time I was graduating was when social media started to kind of take off. But that still didn't really have careers yet at that point. So that wasn't a thing. And then you went to college for chemistry.
Yeah.
So it's I'm just trying to imagine telling your parents nah, I'm not going to use this degree. I'm going to go talk to drunk people.
Yeah, my parents really don't understand how I make money, but I try to tell them that it's a good career. It's one I enjoy, so they like that at least. But like you said, I was the first generation growing up to see people make a career online as opposed to just doing it as something for fun. And I've always wanted to do that myself. My original passion would be long form YouTube videos, so I have a little bit more creativity with it. But I love where I'm at right now.
What kind of long form, what YouTubers did you look up to before? And at what point did you even think that might be something you wanted to do?
Oh, I've always wanted to do it. Back in middle school is probably when I really got into it. That's when I probably got my first phone or iPod or whatever it was at the time. And then just got hooked after that. I got YouTube and I just started watching people. That's where I spent my time. I immediately ditched TV, and I was into video games a little bit, but it was mainly just watching people online. And I like to watch lifestyle content. At the time, kid in Wisconsin, in the winter, there's not much to do. So I'd always watch people doing fun things online, whether it's travel or just playing sports or hanging out with friends. It's kind of stuff like that. It's vlogging kind of stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with Prank vs. Prank at the time. So there's a bunch of prank videos they did.
Yeah.
Jesse and Gina, they did also lifestyle stuff where just vlogging their daily life. And it was cool to see them go from working an actual job to making that their full-time career and just continue success.
Like Danny Duncan kind of prank?
Yeah, I
stuff?
love Danny Duncan. Yeah, he's funny.
Cool. Yeah, I've been trying to get him on the show forever because I have a mutual friend with him.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, because he's from Inglewood, Florida.
Yep.
A buddy of mine, Fishing Garrett, who's huge on TikTok.
Yeah, that's sick.
Garrett? Yeah. They grew up together.
Really?
Yeah, but Danny Duncan just did an episode on the 9 Club, which is the world's biggest skateboarding podcast, and I was listening to it, and in it he said, I don't do podcasts. This is the only one I've wanted to do. People ask me constantly. I was like, man.
I was going to say, It does seem like a lot of people.
Yeah, I guess that's not going to happen. But so when I was growing up, that type of stuff, that type of content was like Jackass and whatnot, where it was on TV. I think what changed though with YouTube was people could kind of target their audience a little bit better rather than saying, well, the show's on MTV during X time frame. What are we allowed to say? What are we not allowed to say? Which obviously made the internet have more racy content, but it also opened up the other end of the spectrum, right? It was the first time where things were kind of targeted towards younger people. There wasn't really an age. I mean, look at like the biggest YouTubers, they are marketing toys to like young kids. But there's the middle ground there of like, you knew you were in middle school watching this stuff. Okay, well, that's a huge audience that right now doesn't know what to watch.
Exactly. Because like you said, MTV was probably for the more mature audience and is on TV at a time that's convenient for most people. But now on YouTube, you can post whenever it's convenient for any demographic you're trying to target. So if I want to grow my following, across the world, I won't post at a good time here. I'll post at a good time there. Sure. And it's the same thing for like middle schoolers. I'm not going to post when they're in school. I'll post when they get out of school and when they start getting on their phones. But also with the middle schoolers, it's never been easier for them to see what an 18-year-old is doing right now. So it helps them mature a little bit. And then, it increases the audience that your content is good for.
Yeah, well, I think that's a interesting point. It doesn't necessarily help them mature. It depends on who they're watching, right? So that's where it comes into play of everyone always says Charles Barkley or whoever it was, it says, I'm not a role model. But that's one thing that I don't think enough people pay attention to or put enough value in, that when they build a platform that they can have a significant impact on people, and it could be positive or it can be negative. And there's a balance there, right? Like nothing's black and white. There's always a gray area of you still need to make money. So like, how can you make money doing this while still being ethical, while still being funny, but still trying to be educational to a certain degree? It's like you have to play that game in you have to try to do your best to play that game to still be a positive influence, which is difficult, I think, because the whole reward situation right now with the internet is like the more controversial, the more risque somebody posts something, it tends to do better. So it encourages people to do that. How do you stay away from doing that when like it would be a hot take right now to come out and ask everybody about whatever? Right.
Well, I try to make my content as similar to who I am. So if you see me interact in a video, that's probably how you'll see me interact in real life. And unfortunately, it's not the same for other content creators. Some people have to be like a personality on camera and stuff, and that's understandable. But other people are really just doing it for the views, like what you said. So for another interviewer, like I'm sure you've seen it online, people expose other street content creators for like faking their videos. They'll ask them one question, splice the answers, and now the contestant will look twice as dumb. And I try not to do that. I try to make it as real and authentic as you can see. And I've had people say like, oh, this content's fake or X, Y, and Z. And that's why I switched to live streaming when I go out now. So every time I go out, you can see how it actually looks when I get the content. But to touch a little bit more on what you said, like the influence you have, I mean, like it's a whole new ball game with like TikTok and stuff, because you become like, I don't want to say famous because I don't like that word, but like you gain an audience, sometimes overnight, and people don't realize that they now have influence. Like for me, when I was still in school at UW-Madison, I met people that wanted to go to school just because I was there. And it's like, wow, I really didn't think that posting videos on this app would, encourage someone to come to this school, but it happens. So you really just have to be aware of the influence you could have. But it makes sense though. You look at all the brands that want to work with these creators. So they clearly have a say in something.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just the world has evolved, which makes it difficult too, right? Because when you're going to college, which you went to school for chemistry, I guess we've totally like not even talked about that. But when you go to college, the old way of doing things was, hey, this is the career path in front of you, and it's pretty like you could see the steps of this is where my career will go from my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s till retirement. It's like very laid out there for you. Versus right now with something like TikTok, and me and Garrett talked about it because his account had gotten taken away at one point, and which is like, but with this type of a career, like you said, you can kind of become, it's famous in a sphere, right? It's in in a certain space. You're famous. It's the same way like pro skateboarding, which I was talking to you off mic. Pro skateboarders are famous in that sphere. Yeah. Outside of that sphere, no one knows who they are. Here's an example. Super famous. That band All Time Low, right? I saw them at Reverb Fest, which was in Eau Claire, and we were chatting backstage. Didn't interview them, but I talked to them for a little while. Sure. I was just in Australia, and in the Sydney airport, they were there. Oh, they were on my same flight, as coincidental as that is.
That's crazy.
And they, Alex, the lead singer, had some issue with his ticket or whatever. And over the mic, they're like, Alex Gaskarth or whatever his name is, Gaskarth. Sure. Like, come to the, podium. If he was in like LA, people would be screaming.
Way different reaction.
Totally.
Yeah.
In Sydney, Australia, yes, they have fans there. Obviously, that's why they're on tour. The whole band was just there. I'm the only one who walked up and recognized them, and they recognized me. Thankfully, I was like, "Oh, yeah,
That's crazy."
We just." But it like even somebody like that, as like actually famous as that guy is, it's still only within his sphere.
Right.
It's really hard to be like A-list at this point, but that doesn't mean you don't have any power or any influence over anything. What were the first videos that you actually made and uploaded? You said they weren't interview style content, and then how did it develop into doing the internet or the interview style content? Was it just one video you did and immediately it's different? Or
so I started producing content my sophomore year of college, which was just before COVID came, so it was like a great time, honestly. And that's when TikTok, came out, 2019, 2020 era. And I never really wanted to get on it because I was in school, I was doing chemistry, and it was tough, School's tough for everybody. But I was focusing my time there. And eventually my brother and friend just convinced me to get online, and they wanted me to start doing ping pong trick shots because they thought there was a market for it at the time. New app, there's nobody doing trick shots. Let's specialize in ping pong trick shots. So we started doing that. I went back to school. That was on like winter break, and I went back to school, didn't have time to do trick shots. So I just posted random videos every day. Growing up, I was 20 or something at the time. I had a collection of random funny videos that my friends and I had just from hanging out. So I'd post one of those a day, and just for consistency, and I gained an audience. And one day, one of them, it was me putting my phone inside of a box of mirrors. That got like 200,000 views overnight. And that was kind of just like rewarding and motivation to keep going. And from there, I just kept posting random fun videos. And I made it to about like 100,000 subscribers. Or not subscribers, but like followers on TikTok.
Yeah.
And I would say what really helped me get an audience was finding a niche. So like I said, I was posting these random videos. And then when I came back for COVID, I didn't have anything to do with all my time. So I spent the better part of COVID building a zip line in my yard and then riding whatever the comments or followers wanted me to ride down the zip line. So it was like couches, it was lawnmowers, pools, shopping carts, whatever, just you name it. I was riding it down my zip line. And then from there, probably had 125,000 at the time. A sponsor reached out and they said, hey, we want to work with you. We want you to come down to Florida for this space thing we're doing, but we want to see how your content does if you do stuff on the street. So they said, hey, do something on the street. We'll see how it goes. And then from there, we'll decide whether we want to work with you. And that's when I came up with the interviewing drunk college students, because it was very popular at UW-Madison. It's known for a party school. And at the time, this was like April of 2020 or 2021 or something like that. And I don't know if you are familiar with Mifflin's block party. Mm-mm. It's like a huge block party for the whole state of Wisconsin. So like every UW school goes down there, and it's one day of just getting absolutely drunk.
Yeah.
And so I was out there with a mic, and I had a sign that said, answer 10 questions right, you'll win $10. Did a bunch of interviews there. I had a great time with them. The contestants had a great time. The sponsors loved the video, but we unfortunately didn't work together. That's how it goes. But I just kept going after that. I just really loved the response on it.
Yeah, one thing with working with sponsors and in general with the internet is you have to be okay with all the people that don't like it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And some people will actively leave nasty comments, troll.
Oh, the sellout comments. It happens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, whatever. You also have to make a living. And
right.
Honestly, that's the funny thing is all these other people that they look up to, all these celebrities and everybody else, they're not calling them sellouts.
Exactly.
Well, how do you think they have this fancy house, dude?
Right.
They had to you know what I mean? People are, what I found over the years is regardless of what you do, people are going to judge you for it. It doesn't really matter how well you do it.
Exactly.
If they're unhappy, they will find something about what you do,
yep.
especially when you're a public person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They'll find one thing that they'll go, oh, you should have done this better. I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about the show, and they're like, yeah, I wish you would have talked about blah, blah, blah during this interview. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, me too. Yeah. And we continued the conversation. I was explaining to him, like, when people compare, they compare to what they know, what they've seen,
yep.
right? So they'd be comparing to Jackass, or they'd be comparing to Joe Rogan or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing this in one take.
Yep.
With somebody that I haven't had a ton of rapport with before. Mm-hmm. So what I've learned with myself is like, I just try to be kind to myself of this is the best I could do in that moment on the spot. I wish I would have asked this.
Exactly.
Or I wish I wouldn't have rambled here. But there's nothing I can do about it. I don't have a team of people that, where I'm sitting down for 6 hours and they're splicing everything together. It doesn't work that way. How does it work when you go out on the street and you just don't have anybody bite? Like it just doesn't, you don't get the content
like
that you want.
Contestants
or
like teams?
Yeah, well, like people, right? Like you go to the mall. I was laughing about this the other day. I saw you posting on it and you're trying to give away $10 or a scratch off ticket.
Yep.
And there's still people that don't even want it. They just think it's a scam, and you're like, no, I'm literally just trying to hand it to you, and they're like, no.
Yeah. I mean, well, first off, to what you said, it's like an argument. Always easier after the fact, you know. There's always something you think of afterwards that you could say. But when I first started, I had a sign, you know, because I always thought people would think it's weird. I'm out here with a mic and a camera, and I'm just gonna pay you. Yeah, okay, buddy, that's legit. So I had a sign, kind of just detailing what was happening, and people were still hesitant. A year after I first started, one of my coworkers, because I was an RA in school, they're like, I saw you when the first day you started this, and I was too nervous to come up to you and ask what was going on. But so it started off hard, you know, because no one knew me. I didn't have any basis. But now it's a little bit easier. When I go out, you know, people see the camera and they see the mic, they can kind of connect two and two, especially if I'm in Chippewa and Eau Claire, the city we grew up in, because people have obviously seen the content here. But when there's nobody around, it's tough, you know. Sometimes you just to call it and use the time more productively, whether it's editing or planning the next videos. But if it's for a sponsor video, I can thankfully rely on friends. Just hit them up, say, hey, man, would you be able to help me out with this? And then they can win a couple dollars too. So
how do you navigate that, though? Because before, content kind of just showed to whoever followed you.
Yep.
But like I was watching a thing with the CEO of Instagram the other day, and he openly was talking about how their biggest complaint is that they don't, you know, the algorithm doesn't show you things from people you follow anymore.
Yep.
It's from random people, right? And he's like, actually, we know better than the people do. That's basically what his answer was saying that I know you guys are saying that. However, the statistics of what you actually watch prove otherwise. So we're not going to do that, which I thought was pig-headed, but that's what he had said. And so when you are in a career like yours, you're building, and thankfully it's across multiple platforms, so if one disappears, you're not totally screwed, but still, you're building, well, the algorithm at any point in time can just not show your stuff anymore. And then same thing when you're working with sponsors, you know, they want to look at all your analytics. You don't know if the sponsored video is going to do well or not, and there's no way you can, it's telling them like, hey, this is how much it could get, but the range is huge. I got a video on TikTok with like 240K or something, and then I have 200 period, just 200 on a bunch of them, and to try to explain to them like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I mean, to touch on the first point, that's interesting. I actually didn't see that, but it reminds me of, I think it was Spotify that made like, I don't remember the name of it, but it was like planned random, because a bunch of people were yelling at them that when they do the random button, it doesn't feel as random as it should be. And so now they switched it so it's less random, but it feels more random to the users. And so that's kind of just like a curious tie right there. But, you know, to stay relevant, you just look at what's trending, what's doing well. And it's not just nationwide, but also on your content. You know, you look at what's performed well, what hasn't performed well. And then if you're going for a new idea, try to connect all these dots. It's kind of like a Venn diagram. Just write it all down, see what overlaps, try it. And it's a lot of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, that's the nice thing is you can always curate your feed. After a while, you can delete videos that didn't do as well and say, okay, if 1 out of every 5. And that really is how it's gotten, which kind of sucks, because you would think with an oversaturated market, the goal would be exclusively to make just like quality over quantity, which isn't really the case at this point, because the highest quality stuff doesn't necessarily go.
Exactly.
It's really strange,
especially
how
on TikTok in the short form, you know, because people prefer the quantity there, but YouTube long form, different story.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. You just kind of have to throw, because the same video that has 240K on TikTok posted at the same time on my Instagram has like 3,000.
Exactly.
And I actually had an audience on Instagram and didn't have one on TikTok, but it's the same video, and I posted it within 5 minutes. It literally was like, cut. Okay, I'll post it here and post it here, and then that's just how it goes. Okay, so let's talk about the first big break that you had. You had the videos that started to pop off, but what was the first thing? Was it you going? Did you go to Florida for the?
So
thing that you're talking about?
Yep, I went to Florida. Well, I didn't actually go for that sponsor, but I went to Florida my senior year of college. I probably had how much? I had probably around 800,000 followers at the time, just on TikTok.
Yeah.
And went to Florida. I got some content there, and that's what really helped me, was traveling, because to build a following, you know, there's a ton of different recipes to do it, but for me, it was having a niche, you know, style of video, having a call to action, and then traveling. Because my niche was on the street content. My call to action was, if you're currently following, you get a bonus life. And then traveling came in because people see that I travel, so now they're incentivized to follow because their chances of running into me are higher. And that's what really helped. So I went, back when I was, you know, growing, I'd probably gain 100,000 followers just by switching campuses.
Sure.
Just because of my call to action and traveling, so.
It's funny though, it's hard to niche down, you know, because it's such a limited view of who you are. Like you're trying to be authentic, obviously,
Right.
but there's so much more to it. And I find that with myself, because people say, why don't you do a separate Instagram page for your artwork? Like, dude, because I don't have the time and energy to manage multiple. So they just happen to be, everything's kind of on one. But it's hard. And I guess because you're specifically just doing interviews, at least at the moment.
Yep.
But for me, I don't want to totally separate all the different avenues of what I do in my life.
because you want one to be you.
Right. I just want it to be one.
Yeah.
But I know that makes it a little bit tough because people who follow me for artwork will unfollow me if I post too much interview content in a row because they're like,
super
oh my
unfortunate.
God, I don't want to watch that. You know, and vice versa.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also difficult because, you know, you already have an audience there and every day it gets more and more saturated. So it'd be harder to grow another audience over here. And you want people that follow you to follow you because of you and not just because you're the person with the mic or whatever it is.
Sure.
So.
What was the first big sponsored thing that you did? I know a lot of things sponsor-wise, the goal is for people not necessarily to know, but some of them certainly are very obvious. And I'm not talking about numbers, but like, what was the first situation where you actually did a sponsored type content and how did that end up going?
Sure. So there was 3 instances for me. So the first one is my first brand deal, and that was with a voting campaign. I think that was like the election year probably. I mean, that makes the most sense. And that was cool, you know? I'm making money online. This is awesome. Before that, I had posted one YouTube video when I was like 12 and I made like $3 and I was jazzed for a week.
Yeah,
so
sure.
It was cool. I was like, okay, well, this can actually turn into something. So that was a boost of euphoria. The second one was the first, I would say, big brand deal I got, and that was with a Wisconsin-based brand. And it was a year-long contract for a variety of videos, and that had a more serious carry to it, you know? And I was like, okay, this is actually, you know, this really could be something. And then the third one was a longer term contract. It was like an indefinite contract, like until they stopped or I stopped. And it was like, holy cow, like I'm making good money now. Like I can do, you know, this opens up a lot of doors for me. And so each time it's like, oh, this is great. And then it's like, it somehow keeps getting better. Yeah. And so it's been awesome. And I've been really thankful for it. So
how have you been able to build that though? It's hard because like I'll see it for me as an example. I'll have people reach out wanting to run something and I'll tell them a number and they're like, oh, cool. I thought it'd be more. And then I have other people that are just like pissed. They're like, your ego is so big because you want blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, whoa, man. Like it's worth whatever people are willing to pay. And I've been paid this dollar amount for this type of thing before.
Right.
I'm not trying to screw you at all, but it's such a fast growing industry that even the people with the marketing teams from a lot of these people, they don't really know what it's supposed to cost.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to build a contract specifically for it because it's so new. There's all new platforms. So like how much do you pay per follower on TikTok versus on Instagram versus a YouTube video? How long does it, like all those metrics, there's so many variables. How do you even know how to negotiate a contract like that and kind of handle all that?
Yeah. So when I started, I didn't.
Right.
And I wouldn't say I got taken advantage of, but I just, you know, I could have got better deals at the time. And that probably happened all the way up through like the midpoint of my senior year of college. I met another content creator friend, Leon, and he does similar stuff to me. And we kind of chatted and like collaborated a little bit, shared ideas, shared insights. And he told me, you know, how brand deals work and, you know, what I should be looking out for, some numbers, some metrics. And from there, you know, I've been pretty good with it. So I found that I like to do research and, you know, find as much data as I can to show to the sponsors, like this is the market standard. This is what people are getting paid. I will do less than that to give you a deal because I love working with new brands and I love finding what works for me. So for me, I find the market standard is on TikTok at least. I'm probably going to butcher the terms, but it's every 1,000 views you get should be, every 1,000 views should be $10, I think is the correct term for it. So it's like a $1 CPM or something like that. Okay. And so for 1 million views, if you average 1 million views per video, you should aim to get $10,000 for a brand deal. And that's before exclusivity, that's before licensing, that's before cross-posting, that's before all of those variables. So that's how it goes. And obviously I think that's a ridiculous amount to pay for a sponsor video. So I try to, dwindle it down a little bit, but also I post across multiple accounts. So if a sponsor reaches out and they have, a smaller budget, I can find a different account that works for them because they'll have less followers somewhere than I will somewhere else.
I think that's one thing that works with you being as niche as you are too, is there isn't any direct competition, because one of the problems with like artists, as another example, is there's an artist that'll do it for less.
Yep.
There's a photographer that'll work for less. Mm-hmm. So trying to compete that way of like making sure you're getting your worth, is difficult. But at least when you're completely niche, it's like, well, who else can realistically
there's no one else
this?
you can go with.
Right,
It's me or nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's been super helpful. So I focus mainly on challenge and reward. And the way I do my ads, like to keep on my game, I make sure that I am competitive for everybody else on the market. There's other people doing interviews, but no one else has the same analytics and demographics that I have, and no one else has the same content that I have. And I present that to the sponsors. I say, hey, if you want to work with me, this is my rate. And you're not paying this just because it's industry standard. You're paying this because look at my past performance. It pays.
Right.
So I also do that. And I compare it against other people. Like, so I have, I've been on campaigns with my friends, and I routinely go back and look at it. And I mean, it's not all the time, but most of the time my videos perform better than the competitors.
Sure.
So
how do you decide what content you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do? Because sometimes those people, they think they have more control than they do over it. And being the creator, like, well, if I do this blatant advertising would be a good example, right?
Yep.
If I do this blatant ad, I know it won't perform well. Like, I could tell you it's not going to perform well, but that's what they want you to do. How do you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, it happens. It's unfortunate. I don't like to do it because I don't want my audience to just see ad after ad after ad. It's better when they're more discreet and, hidden, but blatant advertising does happen. Like, I recently did one where I'm like, here, I think these ideas would do great, probably get a couple 100,000 views. And they said, okay, that's great, but let's do this. And I'm like, okay, if you want to, let's do it. But it's not going to feel very organic to my account. And I'm just concerned that's not going to get the reach you want. And that's what ended up happening. But even with that, I have an audience, so it still gets some views, just maybe not what I would hope to get for an average view count or engagement for a sponsor video.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. So how do you explain to people like your parents and other people, not using your degree, that like this is actually a career that has an actual future? Because I think it's pretty obvious to everybody that the internet's not going anywhere. Advertising dollars are moving into this space.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But that's all brand new. There's no history behind that to say that that's going to exist. How do you navigate that conversation with those types of people?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, whenever I first meet someone, I always say, yeah, I do online marketing. I work from Wi-Fi. I try to give the most broad, simple answer I can. And then if they're more curious, I'll provide more information. But to my parents, like, it's nice because I didn't just get into it and then I told them, it's like, I'm getting into it with them. They knew about me doing stuff online and they saw the gradual grow. So it kind of helped them learn about it over time as opposed to one instance. And I kind of just explained it to them, like, think about TV. There's ads on TV. That's kind of what I do, except it's not like a broadcast. I post when I want. And so that helps them understand it, but they don't understand all the intricacies. So still a learning lesson for them.
Yeah, I absolutely think so. I mean, in general, anytime something's evolving, there's always going to be that, like, I don't know, I guess you're walking into the darkness. But the positive thing too, when you have that, is new platforms pop up or whatever. It's a lot of just like new opportunities too.
Definitely. And I don't even know all of them. I see my friends doing unique stuff that I never thought of that you could make money. And like before meeting with my friend Leon, I didn't even know about licensing and exclusivity. I just knew people want to work with me, I post their video. That's all I knew. But I learn every day. So
let's talk about how you split your time up. Obviously, going down and shooting some videos is nice.
Yeah.
But that's actually a really short period of time.
Yeah,
right?
it really
like
is.
Same way with this. I sit down and the actual recording is pretty much what people see. I edit out some things and do some editing, but like it's the hour and a half I spend with you, but it's 10 hours plus of editing and then all of the social media interaction after that and then all the posting of the different things. Like this is the short part.
Oh yeah.
For you, like how does your time kind of be split?
Yeah, so now it's different than when I started. I'm more serious with it now, but a majority of my time is post-production. So it's the planning, or I guess that's pre-production, but planning, looking at it, what went well, what didn't go well, editing. That's where I spend most of my time. One video is probably 2 to 4 hours, depending on the intricacy of it, how difficult it is. And then it's a lot of like behind the scenes business kind of stuff. So emails, anything like that, dealing with brands, finding something that works. And thankfully I'm at a point where it's not just me involved with this stuff. So I have kind of a team to help me out. So I'm doing a lot of, not meetings, but I just call like people on my team and I say like, hey, what do you think about this and that? So a lot of behind the scenes work, just you name it, I'm probably doing it. So
what's your least favorite part of all of it?
Editing. I edit almost all of my own stuff right now. I have one person that thankfully helps me out and I'm super grateful for that, but editing takes so long and I'm just staring at a computer for like 10 hours a day and it's just draining. I just don't like it.
I'm in the same boat. That's by far my least favorite thing, but I found if I don't edit, it doesn't do as well.
Yeah.
So I kind of I feel like I have to do it, but I get in that conflict of like, man, I do this for definitely not for this part of the job, but
Right.
now it's becoming such a significant part of what I'm doing that I'm like, this is, I still think the benefits outweigh the negatives, you know,
Yeah.
especially where I've gotten to in my career.
Sure.
But it's a pretty huge negative. And same way,
I
just
agree.
like having a public face for things. Not that I'm like hugely public, but just owning a business in Eau Claire and all that. Like people are so, they think when they know who you are that they can place all their judgment on you, and anything that you do,
terrible.
they can call out your mistake or they can say what you should have done or whatever,
Yeah.
just because they can see it. When I know if the roles were reversed, if I could see your whole life, I could put on things that I think you did wrong.
Right.
It'd be really easy because we all make mistakes all the time.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
you know,
yeah.
but for me, just kind of being in the public and then sitting on my computer and staring at a screen were things that weren't really the intent with what I do, and they take up way more time than anything else that I do.
Yeah, and I would say the one thing with that, you know, it's tough because not all of them, but a lot of our mistakes are online, and
Yeah.
it's harder to have a private life now that you're online. And so, I mean, that's just like a trade-off of the job. And you do get those negative comments, you do get that feedback, and you know, I try to just brush it off and remind them that they don't know the full story, but that's just one person's opinion. And for one negative, there's definitely a positive out there.
Everyone knows that the negatives hurt way more than
Oh,
the
yeah.
positives do. Like if you get, I think the stats like out of 10, if you get 9 good things and 1 bad, you remember the 1 bad.
Yeah.
That's going to happen with everybody. I was talking to Jaron about that too.
Yep.
Like that's just, it comes with the territory. What steps have you taken? What has worked for you for it not to emotionally affect you as much?
Oh man, I mean, it definitely happens all the time, but specific videos hurt more than other videos. Like, so I tried to do this as another way to promote positivity and spread smiles because I love helping other people. I mean, it's just like a human thing. People love to help others. And so when I do a video where I'm trying to, you know, help someone else out, and one example comes to mind, I was giving away, I was doing a deal with Quick Trip and I was giving away gas for people. And I said, this is at the time when double or pass it on was really popular. So I said, do you want 1 gallon of gas or do you want to double it and pass it on? And it got to like, I don't remember what it was at, but it was $5 per gallon at the time. And we got like to $400 or something. And I gave it away, and I didn't think I was going to get that high. So I didn't have that much cash on me. And I said, okay, cool. Let me grab your Cash App. I'll pay you. And all the comments like, oh, okay, I'll pay you. And it's like, I'm not just doing this for the views, guys. Like, I'm really trying to help someone out. And it's disappointing when people think that that's all you are. You know, after 1,000 video catalog of trying to help people out, they say, oh, this is all you're trying to do is just do it for the views. And so it definitely is negatively affecting. Like, but I remind myself that that's their limited view of who I am, and it's inaccurate. But I like to talk with friends. I like to talk with others. Remind myself that, I mean, just go look at the other videos and I see the positive comments there. So I try to just ignore it a little bit.
Yeah, I've gotten in the habit of just like blanket blocking people.
Yeah,
like I got
that's fair.
For the longest time, I never did. It was like I need to resolve any issue with anybody.
Yeah,
and that became so
it's
draining.
a terrible mindset. You're never going to solve an argument online.
No. So
Yeah.
I just got to the point where if somebody sends me, like I remember I posted one thing one time that was like, and it was just trying to be positive. It was like, all the tools are available for you to start chasing your dream today. I believe in you. Seriously, like positive. It was like that.
That's sweet.
And then I got a message like that was like eyes rolling, like that's such a white male thing to say. And I was like, oh my God, dude.
Yeah, why
like,
do you gotta think
I'm
there?
liberal, I'm with you, but like, come on.
Yeah, dude,
Like,
just trying to, help someone else out.
Yeah. I'm bummed you're not in a coffee. But
Yeah.
I did want to shout out my friend Tim. He graduated from UWC.
Okay, very cool.
And he plays music in Minneapolis. But he has his own like boutique coffee brand called Minimum Wage Tim's.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. So they just put out a few new different flavors. It's whole bean coffee. They get it from, dude, he gets it from all kinds of different like countries. I know some from Papua New Guinea recently even.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's super dope. But you can find me on Instagram at Minimum Wage Tim and minimumwagetims.com. You can use the code PASSION and you get a discount on. They do like the subscriptions now, which I think is like smart.
So they deliver it to your door then? Or?
Yeah, they'll deliver
really
it and
cool.
you'll get like different coffee every month or you know whatever you want to do with it.
If I was into coffee, I'd probably hate running out. So that's really tight, actually.
Yeah, it's kind of perfect.
Yeah.
You were just telling me about some different sponsorship deals of places you've gotten to go. What are some of the cooler places you've gotten to go? What were some of the more exciting opportunities outside of the financial aspect?
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said earlier in the show, I'm always learning about new opportunities. So the poster board child of sponsor deals is we pay you to promote our stuff on your account. But there's other stuff like UGC, which is user generated content. So they'll pay me to make a video for them to post. So recently in September, I was brought out to New York and I made some UGC for a skincare brand just about their cleansing balm. So I was brought out there, made a video about this in New York, edited the video, gave it to them, and they posted it. So that was cool. Earlier this year, still this year, it's about to switch years. Earlier this year, Culver's brought me out to Florida. We did a whole day-long shoot where I wasn't even filming. I was just the host. So that was a new thing for me. And I was just hosting a series of videos for them to post in July, just kind of finding a reason to have custard every day. So that was fun. I went out to California in August with Quizlet. They brought me out there, did some videos for some new AI features they have going out, or had gone out at the time, I guess. That was really cool. That was my first time in San Francisco. Really loved it there. And I'm talking with some right now. I mean, it's not official, but I might be going out to Dubai for like a climate change thing.
Bring me. I'll interview somebody over there. Come on.
Yeah, I really want to go out there, but it's just tough during the holiday season. You know, I want to spend time with family, so just got to balance that out.
It's really hard to balance work and life when like your life is so intermingled with
You're always
work.
on, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can't really ever turn it off. Is that something you struggle with that balance? Or are you like, currently, I don't have kids, I can give 100% to it all the time?
For me, thankfully, it's a little bit more of the second part. You know, I have more time to dedicate towards it because this is all I do. I love doing it. And, you know, the more work I do, the more benefit I get. But the difficult part is, like I said earlier, you can't have a private life. So, there's times where I'm talking with someone, specifically, let's say a girl, and then I'll see a screenshot of the chat log somewhere else, and it's like, okay, that's cool. And so that makes it more difficult, and that's just something you got to be aware of. But also, like I said, you're always on, so I'll be with friends or family, and you know, I'm on my phone. It's like I'm working at that time, so it's tough because it makes it easier to work from wherever you want to be, but it also makes it harder to have that time together with other people.
Yeah, it's hard because you feel guilty because you know that you could be doing more.
Sure.
You know, even when you're on vacation or something, you're like, but I need to post every day. And there's ways like you can set things up so that way it's like a draft and you can click, or you can schedule a post, but it still doesn't perform in the same kind of way as if you were like actively on it.
And even then, you know, if it's scheduled to post, you're going to want to check and see how it's doing. And so, you know, it's tough.
How do you navigate personal relationships then with this? Because as you grew at an exponential rate. There are always people that are more successful and grow faster than you. Like that's always going to happen. But generally speaking, you're kind of an outlier in where we live. I know a lot of times people move to LA or whatever, and then they just move into a content house or something, you know, and it's not just about content. Musicians do the same thing, right? They like envelop themselves in whatever their peers are that are doing similar things.
A more structured growth.
Right. But there's nobody that does anything similar. What I do is the closest to what you do of anybody in the area. And it's not even very close. How come you haven't considered moving to, or maybe you have considered moving to an area where you would be surrounded people like that? Like Grace, you know, like she's another, I don't know how many kids from Chippewa are just blowing up on the internet these days, but like Grace kind of blew up and now I think she's in LA.
Yeah, I think I think she is in LA. So I want to stay in the area because I love what I do right now with like the short form content, but I want to get into more of the stuff that I wanted to do. So like long form YouTube videos, lifestyle content. And I think this area is the best for that because I think the success will come not just from me, but from having a group of fun people to be around, a group of friends, a group of something like, it's always easier to do something fun with people than it is by yourself. So I want to stay here for that. But I have a van that I live out of and I travel around the US when it gets cold like this. So I'll go get content down south for like a month or two and then I'll come back up here and hang out, relax, edit, hang out with friends.
So what are your goals? What do you want to evolve into? Eventually this is going to have to evolve into something.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to be this way exactly.
Yeah, I'm not going to be 50 on the street at a college town.
No, exactly. So where do you want it to evolve? Do you want it to be more long form type content? Do you want it to be, you know, for a TV program? Or like for me, I want to be the dude that interviews people that come through the Midwest in long form, you know, like whoever Taylor Swift's coming through, like obviously gonna like interview, like what that was why it was cool to interview, you know, dude from the Plain White Tees,
like
it's
Tom,
super cool when he was here. That was rad. And Dessa just the other day, I want to kind of position myself as that person, and I don't want to be in LA or New York or whatever. I don't really see it as like an international thing.
Sure.
Not that I don't want people to listen in other places, but that's really where I want to
that's really cool though.
Concentrate.
That's a great idea, honestly.
Where do you want to grow to?
So for me, still stay with content for now, you know, but just transition into something a little bit less routine. So like just lifestyle, post it when I can, and then hopefully have an audience around that. That'd be the first step. And then from there, try to use that as like a taking off point to get into more business related things. So whether it's something that I own or if I'm doing stuff like with a startup, I think it'd be fun to get, you know, my foot in there and see how that goes, because my father grew up doing business stuff, entrepreneurial stuff, and I always thought it was really cool. And so I'd love to take a stab at that and see how that goes.
Like investing kind of behind the scene, and then working
with startups. I think it'd be fun because I like kind of like engineering. I like challenges thrown at me, and I like to try to find unique solutions for them. So I think it'd be fun to work with businesses and see where they're struggling and see how or what I can do to help them. I mean, it'll probably be mainly on the marketing side, but that'll still be fun for me. So I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Well, and you're 24, so you're going to learn a whole lot of things.
Oh yeah.
I mean, flying all over the place, driving all over the place, dealing with all these different people, you're gaining more knowledge than your brain can really handle.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And
I
try
don't
to take
realize
in what
it too.
you can, but it's like way overload. People, when you stay in the same place, and not knocking that because I love Eau Claire, but it's a lot of the same information that you're gathering.
Yeah.
You know, because it's all based on the same things. Whenever you leave to different areas, it's like everything you see is new, and it's kind of an overload. That's why like you get so tired on vacation, and at the end you're like, I just want to go home, and I don't want new information being processed.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And like you said, like the collection of information, it's too much sometimes where you don't really understand all the stuff you're taking in. But sometimes, like, for example, I had a conversation with my father. He was talking about some of the stuff that he was facing at work, and I was like, maybe you should try this. And it's like, oh, that's a unique solution that he wouldn't have thought of because he wasn't in the situations that I was in. And so it's cool to think like, you know, that it applies in so many different fields than what I'm just doing right now.
How do you learn, like advice-wise, figuring out what to even do? Because when you reach a peak to a certain degree, like I said, for what you do, you're by far the biggest in this area.
Sure.
There's not really anybody else in the sphere. So there's not really any like peers that are in that zone. Not that you don't have friends, but you don't have anybody that's really close in the space to really discuss with. Same way, I'm the only one really, well, there are podcasts, but I'm the only one that really does a podcast or has for an extended period of time in relation to what I do. So I don't have anybody that I can text and say, what do you think about this? Because they don't have, anyone I would ask wouldn't have really a perspective. You know what I mean?
It is tough. I mean, it started with it just being me bouncing ideas off of myself, but now thankfully I have my brother help me out with, what am I trying to say? I have my brother help me out with this a lot. There we go. Okay. I have my brother help me out with this a lot. So he's in the specter. He's also on social media too. Like, you know, he grew up with it too. So he has a lot of good ideas. Or else I have other friends. Like I have someone that's still in school that does part-time work for me. So a lot of like creative ideas and help me with like the business model. Or else just making friends. You know, I travel the US when it gets cold in Wisconsin, and I've met with a ton of content creators, and I keep up with them. You know, it's with the phone, it's easier than ever. So it's good to bounce ideas off of them. Or else I try to keep it to what I want to do too. Like it's my account, so I want to post what I want to post, or what I would want to see, I want that posted. So I just kind of find what I like to do.
Well, you have to have it still be fun. When we talk about like all the stuff behind the scenes that is not fun, it's like you got to make at least some part of it. Like, how do you curate this to be as enjoyable of an experience as possible? It's fully in your control, right?
Right.
And you can take on as much work, or you can be as lazy or whatever, or you can be creative rather than like financially driven. But you have to find a balance to everything to like figure out what's the best way to do it. So right now, YouTube Shorts are doing really, really well.
Oh yeah.
Right. That's kind of,
I would say that's the best performing platform right now. If you're building an audience, go to YouTube Shorts.
Well, it kind of like clicked with me that on something like Instagram, not everybody, the majority of people post, right?
Oh, yeah.
When you're talking about creating content, even if it's just a picture of them with their family, it still goes in the feed. So like people are creating content. Kind of every user is creating content, or 90%. You go to TikTok, way smaller of a percentage of the users actually create any content. They're mostly just consuming content.
Oh yeah.
You go to YouTube, and it's astronomically low, the number of people that actually create the content versus the number of people that watch the content, which I think once that clicked in my mind, I was like, that's why that platform works.
Yeah. And it's also like YouTube's paying a lot right now. So they're trying to get more people to get on their platform to create content, given all the views that they're getting. So trying to balance it out. Yeah.
And I guess for me, I try not to get discouraged when something's not working, you know what I mean? Because like on Instagram,
resiliency is key.
Yeah, exactly. They're like pushing reels or whatever. And I'm like, okay, cool. So like I'll play that game, and now they're not really anymore. But then YouTube is, and I'm just trying to like, okay, put my time wisely, not get discouraged, and see what opportunities are there. What opportunities right now? If somebody else had an idea, they want to make origami frogs. I don't know, whatever. They have their thing that they want to try to take off. What are the lanes? What platforms? Where should they spend their time while they're trying to grow something right now?
Okay, and this will also kind of touch on a little bit of the question right before. Is like, how do I balance, you know, enjoying what I do and having my own fun with it? Anything can work. I mean, I did a kind of like presentation at UW Eau Claire talking about marketing and online, and I said, you can market anything. Before coming to this lecture, I found a TikTok account of a piece of bread, and it has 300,000 followers, 50 million views per video. You could do anything online. So it's just a matter of finding what's currently doing well and connecting that with what you want to do. So like with that, if you're coming out with a new product, put it online, and make a ton of videos, throw it at the wall, see what sticks, but do your research. Have some kind of educated decision, like why you think something will do well. So go look at the trending videos today. Go look at the trending keywords. When in doubt, connect it with Taylor Swift. You'll get a good amount of views with that. But yeah, don't go at it blind. Don't go at it blind. But if you do, look at what has performed well for you. So.
Yeah, and I think you just got to treat it like a business, right? Like this is a product, and how do I make this product sell and be successful? And obviously, we're like using different terms, sell versus viewed. But it's if you take that same mentality of like treating it in that kind of way, because obviously people think, oh, I can just go shoot videos and it'll work. It's like, well, it will eventually if you do it the right way, but there's so much to it. So just don't expect anything to like go really easy. It's just going to take a long time.
There's tons of different recipes
and even
for
if
success.
you make really good content, it's going to take a long time.
It also won't just work out. Like even if it's, like if I was starting over again and I was posting my content now, it wouldn't get the same amount of views I have right now because it took time to get where I'm at for an audience to recognize me.
Yeah. And by the time that they would, the things would have changed, and you'd have to evolve and change things
completely
anyways.
Different content.
Right. You have to constantly evolve. I always like to ask this question on every episode because I think when you do things that you're passionate about for a living, you get to have really unique experiences. Hopefully you'll get to Dubai. But in general, like you get to have really cool, unique ones, and they're typically not financially related. Not that it's not nice to get like a huge paycheck for something. Yeah. What's a story of something you're really grateful for, but it only happened because you pursued, I don't know, what do you even call it? Content creation, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess it's not much of a story as it is like memories. So this is my second year out of college, and the first year out of college, I was not sure what I was going to do when it started snowing in Wisconsin. My content's outside, it's with others. So what do I do? And my friend from down South Leon, he's like, hey, let's do an SEC tour. So the SEC colleges, and we went there in the fall and toured it and had a great time with all the content we got. And then come winter again, we did it again. And I'd say it was those times were really fun with me. That was when I first got my first full-time employee. We were living in the car together, and thankfully he was a friend from high school. So it was just kind of like hanging out, making new friends with Leon and his crew, and then me and my friend, and just making new memories, traveling the U.S., hard times, good times, just sharing it all together with them. It's a really good memory for me.
Did you get a van? Did you buy a van?
So the first time I was in my car. So there was two people in a car, and that was...
Where'd you sleep?
In the car. Just He folded the seats down. I had an old futon mattress.
Life.
Yeah, I had an old futon mattress I threw in there. Parked at Planet Fitnesses. Woke up, showered. That's your whole center right there. That's your house. But the next trip, so the second trip in February, we got a van. We lived out of there, so it was definitely better. But it was a lot of fun, and I'm excited to go on the road again.
Yeah, dude, where's the next spot? What are you going to do? You were saying hopefully Dubai, but where are the next things on your list that you're trying to get to?
Man, I want to go to the Northwest and Northeast, but I'm not going there now. It's too cold for me right now.
Sure.
So I'm probably going to go back to Cali. Probably last time I went from Las Vegas to Cali all the way down to Florida for a spring break. Probably going to repeat a lot of that, but spend more time at different places.
Mostly universities?
A lot of universities. I like to go to New York City, but again, that's Northeast and it's cold now. So if there's any big cities like that out there, I'm definitely going to try to hit those up. But it's difficult because my audience is young. Right. And I went to 6th Street in Austin, if you're familiar with that. But it's older than college kids, and the content didn't perform as well, and it wasn't the same reactions. So it's difficult to go to those places sometimes.
Have you had anybody be in a video and then be mad about it? Message you and say, take it down or anything like that?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So what do you do?
I used to do content where every interview I'd start by having it recorded. Hey, do you mind if I post this online, or getting their permission? But then I realized even if they ask me to take it down, I'm just going to take it down, because if I wanted something taken down, I'd want them to be as respectful. So I just don't even do that anymore. If they want it taken down, I'll just take it down. And if they want it not posted after the interview, I'll just ask them hey, you cool if I post that still? And so I just respect them, because it's always different being behind the camera and then seeing it in front of on your phone. So
and especially the content you create, it's kind of, it's funny,
yeah,
but you can either take that lighthearted as I looked stupid in that, or you can be mad because you looked stupid in that.
Yeah, and I try to remind people, for example, you think about the last short form video you watched. You probably can't remember it. So no one's going to remember it. It's just you look at it, you have a good time, you scroll.
Sure.
So,
how do you decide where you go? Do you put out a whole roadmap ahead of time? Do you get a sponsor that's these are exactly where the places I'm going?
Yeah, I do that just so I can ignore it, because that's usually what happens. I don't know, I just get an idea of it. For the last trip, we figured out where we want to start and where we want to end. And then from there, we kind of just pick cities in between. Probably going to do that again this trip. Figure out where we want to start and where we want to end, and figure out the time and stops in between. But if we have anywhere that like we really want to go, we'll just make that work too. So one place that I still really want to go, but I haven't had the time to, was the Grand Canyon. Despite being in Arizona getting content, just didn't have time for it. So hopefully I can do that next trip.
Just personally to see it?
Yeah, I love being outside in nature, so I'd love to see it.
It would be kind of a funny backdrop to
It
like
would be
talk
cool,
to the
too.
tourists there.
Yeah, or just some challenge with the Grand Canyon or something fun.
Well, yeah, don't have people slip and fall
Yeah,
into
no.
the Grand Canyon.
Bad time.
So where can people go follow you, interact with your stuff? If they have questions for you, I'm sure you get flooded with
Sure.
DMs. Most people, though, I found, even if they have a lot of followers, they typically still check their DMs. They just don't
Yeah.
respond unless it's a real question. But
Yep.
if people wanted to try to get a hold of you to ask them something because I blew it in the interview and didn't ask or whatever,
Yeah,
how
definitely.
can people best get in contact and follow you?
Yeah, so you can DM me. So all of my accounts are just WYATTEIDEN, or you can just go to that.com, WyattEiden.com. DM me on Instagram would probably be the best place for me to find it, but I am pretty bad at checking those messages, so it might be a week or so. But yeah, if you have any questions, I'll try to answer anything you guys want to know. And so,
Do you sit like once a week and scroll through them, or how do you even do that?
I'm about as bad as it comes when it comes to checking messages. Like, thankfully, I have friends around me that are as curious to read my messages as others, and so they like to go through them and be like, "Hey, this guy messaged you. Do you want to reply to him?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course I do."
Sure.
Because
Because
I need to
brands
check
will
them
just
more.
reach out.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
business opportunities will come through that you could totally be missing.
Yeah, but it's hard because on Instagram there's 4 different areas you can get messages. Like,
Yeah.
and I gotta check all of them, and there's a ton of spam in there, and there's a ton of people just sending random questions. So it's hard to like, sort, relevant from irrelevant. But I try to look at them all, and I try to respond to them all.
Well, and I think if a brand wants to work with you bad enough, or if a person wants to work with you bad enough, they'll message you more than once.
Yeah, and
Right.
business email, that's the best place to reach me if
Yeah.
you're like a brand or something. But yeah, or drop a comment. Tag me in a comment. I check those religiously. I check all of my tags. So if you want to get my attention, that's where you could get me.
Yeah, I interviewed Bryson Roach. He's the younger brother of the lead singer of Papa
Sure.
Roach, and he does content for all these rock stars and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was asking him about it, and he was like, "That's my secret." He's like, I DM them, and then I send them a message on TikTok, and then I send them a Facebook message, and then I email them, and then I email their manager. And
It's just
because
like-
it's coming from all these places, there'll be the recognition in that person's brain.
Yeah.
Of, I saw that. I think I've seen this name before. Maybe I'll read it.
Yeah, it's like brand deals. It's the same thing for me. If I want to work with a company, I won't send them one email and then go belly up. I'll email them 3 times, and then I'll find various other ways to contact them. I'll call the contacts, like the customer support. I'll drop a comment on their videos. I'll DM them. I'll make sure that I'm not getting rejected because they didn't see me. I'm getting rejected because they truly just don't want to work with me. So
Perfect. I need to take from that advice.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.